The tide seems to be turning inside our civil service. Yes, there is a massive backlash and an uprising of anti-woke civil servants who want to push out their left-wing ideologies. Hello everybody, welcome back to Tousi TV. Before we get excited, let's not pretend that this is going to be thousands and thousands of civil servants rising up. This is a small group, but of senior civil servants in each department, and I'm going to explain you the story in full in this video and get their reaction to it. But this is a good start, because for too long we've had the voice of the initially the loud minority of far leftist, wokey globalists who've been taking over our institutions, and we've been saying this for such a long time. And now the Telegraph have done this investigation with the help of many others and civil servants. This investigation confirmed what we've been saying for years. And initially, and it wasn't just people like me, in America, there were a lot of people talking about it as well for years. There were people on the political right. You had Andrew Breitbart and many others saying it. And the establishment and the media said, you're all tinfoil hat nutters. There's no such thing as a takeover, an infiltration of the globalist lefties. Now they confirm that it actually has happened. I mean, I'm not shocked because we've been talking about this every day on this channel. But it is still a little bit, it's not surprising, but it is shocking, let's just say. So the details is the Cabinet Secretary Simon Case has now been warned by senior civil servants of a woke takeover of Whitehall, proactive takeover, that risks improperly influencing government policy. Considering that the civil service is supposed to be, well, it's the unelected part of government and the state, they have to be following orders from our elected politicians and government ministers. Not only they haven't been following the orders, they are making their own policies. We've talked about the Home Office on this channel quite recently as well, and the NHS completely going against what the politicians are telling them to do. So they are going against parliamentary democracy, especially the NHS. Anyway, there's a letter that has been signed by 42 senior civil servants from 16 departments. They said, many of us have experienced some form of professional disadvantage because we do not believe that the concept of gender identity is meaningful, or that it is more important than sex. Several of us have been through stressful and intrusive employment disputes. This is why I always say, obviously on this channel, on a regular basis, I attack civil service and senior civil servants who are woke, and sometimes obviously I have to clarify, I'm not talking about every single individual civil servant, because there are many other type of civil servants who are basically the silent majority. They're just doing their job and they're not woke or they're not left-wing. But obviously when we attack the stereotype of civil servants, their job gets undermined. So I always have to clarify every now and then. So disclosures must spur action. A signatory of the letter told the Telegraph that there has been a widespread woke takeover of Whitehall that our most senior officials have swallowed hook, line and sinker. This is actually quite interesting because the way they're talking about this in this investigation, because this is not really just a couple of interviews, it's an actual investigation. They are talking about a proactive takeover. So a lot of people in the past, even when we were talking about these sort of things over the last few years, some people said, this could be a gradual, inevitable or unintentional takeover, as in the millennial generation who became woke as they grew up, they started to get these jobs and just inevitably the institutions became woke. But I always had a feeling, I said, this doesn't seem to be an accident, because these plans have been exposed since the 60s, 50s and 60s. There have been so many people who exposed these plans, even former KGB officers and communists who said there are a lot of plans that the Chinese communists and the Soviet communists were doing to affect the West and damage the West within the next few decades, to infiltrate and cause chaos in our institutions. So one of the people anonymously said that I'm in a silent majority, bullied into acceptance. That's the subtitle. Saying, I work as a civil servant for a major government department, and I am part of what I believe is a silent majority being bullied into accepting the wholesale adoption of gender identity ideology. freedom of speech does not exist for anyone whose personal or religious beliefs clash with the official version of reality, or for women who might have been victims. But yeah, so talking about the biological male and females, and they said instead, those who exercise their legally protected right to gender-critical views, obviously, are accused of bigotry and hate compared to racists and obviously harassment. They've been harassed and actively silenced, usually by having their views ignored. They also say, having started through staff networks, which are diversity groups set up by civil servants, and HR, gender ideology has become embedded right across the civil service, with a convenience or cowardice of senior leaders who seem genuinely scared of this issue. So this is at best, I always say, at best, some of them are complacent, some of them are fearful. The rest are complicit because they have completely been promoting this. And there are all these people who are working in civil service and they are getting completely alienated. And the problem with that is civil service as a system is here, whether you like it or not. So the best thing to do is to do a shake-up, to reform it, to have better people. And the more we allow this takeover to continue, and the more we just attack the civil service as a whole without actually listening to the good ones, so what's going to happen? The few good ones are going to get alienated and leave completely, and the whole system will completely be taken over by the other side. The same thing that happened and is happening to the education system. For decades, we basically accepted that the majority of, or a big chunk of teachers happened to be politically left-wing, right? And then we just didn't do anything about it as society. And those few good teachers who were not left-wing or political, they got alienated and they started leaving the industry. And there's still a few good ones left, but they're going to get alienated. Eventually they're going to leave. And the whole education system is also going to be completely dominated, not just dominated, in full, employed by or filled with wokey people. So this is the problem. So we have to fight back, and those who choose to work as civil servants or teachers, if they're good, we need to actually encourage them to do it, to get in there and have better political leaders and political parties in government to actually help them and reform the system and fight back. This is the best British revolution that we can do for now. Anyway, this is the graph that we have, the data for you guys, the number of people who work in the civil service right now. So 510,080 people. So it's a quarter more than we had in 2016. The size of government and state is increasing in the United Kingdom. This is a quarter more than when we voted to leave the EU. 17.8 billion pounds. This is the total, just the salaries of civil servants, not the cost of civil service, just the salaries. 6.1% of them identify themselves as LGBTQ plus division, subtract and everything else. 54.5% of civil servants are women, so they are a majority. 94,160 headcount at the largest government departments. This is the Department for Work and Pensions. That's huge. And the average civil service pay, that's, by the way, this is just the minimum average for ordinary civil servants, and we're not talking about cabinet secretary level, is £34,590. So quite a lot compared to a lot of people who are still living in 20k. A lot of people, it's still less than 20k, sometimes 15, 18k a year, depending on where you are in the country, of course. But so this is what we're dealing with, and somehow, even now, despite the fact that the Telegraph have done this story, investigation, and I'm reporting it, the media are going to be deniers. If you go and knock on the door of the BBC and say, do you want to do a report on this issue? They would say, it doesn't exist. You are a tinfoil hat, far-right, crazy nutter. That's what they're going to say. Let me know what you think of this investigation in the comment section. I'm Tousi, and we are the media.